want to do in this stage of my life is to help other people experience a little what I have experienced at 65. This is some of the best years of my life right now. How weird. Why not 30? Why not 35? I said to a friend today, I'm a little mad at God. My friends are all people that I can be honest with. I said, why couldn't I have experienced this at 35? Why did I waste all those years? I've wasted all those years. And this dude looked across, his name is Mike, looked across the table at me and he said, you've got today. I began to see those positive sides. I began to identify things in my life that were signs of life, seeing colors instead of gray again. It just feels like life. It feels like the glory of God is man fully alive. The road that goes past our house doesn't look steep, but it is. It's about a 2-mile run from the top to the bottom. And sometimes, if we're lucky, it snows. And I mean, it snows hard. And I got on a sled one time and laid down on my stomach and ripped down that hill so fast, it scared me to death, to life. It scared me to life. And the first thought in my mind was, oh, would the babies love this? But they learned to steer. We got them all up there. They're screaming and yelling. And so I'm going down the hill, passing them up, yelling to them, trash talking them all the way down. And then I wiped out. And it was just an epiphany. Wow, you can hear them laughing in the background. Wait for me, Grandpa, wait for me. Some of them have stopped and they're pushing with their arms to get started again. And it's just a little taste. This is a little of what it feels like to live fully alive. It feels like this.
Goodbye, girl. Goodbye, girl. This rocks. This absolutely rocks. I'm so glad to be here with you. I want to tell you, that little thing you just saw on the screen is a day that I will never forget. We were clocked going down that mountain at better than 40 miles an hour. It was unbelievable. So I taught my grandchildren to do it. And it was so cool. What a day that was. An unbelievable day. Watching my grandchildren wipe out on the edge of the road and then be able to pass them, let them know that Grandpa could still wipe them out. Coming down the road, I wish I could describe what it feels for you. I had that camera pointing toward me, but we were coming down the road, and I was coming down there just praying to God. God, oh God, God, please don't let a UPS truck pull out in front of us. That was the inspiration, part of the inspiration for what's happening tonight. But first, it's very important that I tell you, or introduce myself to you, so that we can get to know each other a little bit better. Some of you don't know me. So I brought pictures and everything. This, I brought a picture of my innocent stage. This is my innocent stage. I was handsome from the beginning. And even back then, I was weird. I'm going to tell you about this, but even back then, I was a little bit strange. But that was when I didn't know. I was just innocent. And then I went through an insolent stage, kind of my teenage years. And the smile sort of belies a fact that was a very difficult part of my life. I'm going to tell you about that tonight. And then I went through the idiot stage of my life. With my pirate shirt. I can't even look at that. You just know that somewhere there's a disco ball just spinning like crazy. So here I am tonight in the confused stage of my life. This is where I am now. I am so happy to be here. I went all the way through this entire journey, and I'm here tonight in that stage right there. And I'm glad to be here. I have never felt better in my life. And to go on, so I got you a little bit of an introduction there. I want to let you know I am not right. I have never been right. I never will be right. I have been weird from day one. I enjoy things nobody else enjoys. One of my favorite Saturday things to do is to drive my motorcycle down to the highway near my home and sit on my motorcycle at the edge of the highway with my wife's hairdryer and point that at cars as they go by. I love the smell of burning rubber. Am I alone? I want to tell you, if you sit on the edge of a highway with a hairdryer on a motorcycle and you point it at cars, people will slam on the brakes. And you can sit there long as you want and just sniff of the rubber. I am weird and it's getting worse. It has gotten worse. As I grow older, I seem to get weirder. I'm going to tell you a true story. I was at a meeting the other day. I had a meeting, about an hour and a half meeting. And at the end of that meeting, as I headed out the door, I did what I now do almost every day of my life when I'm headed anywhere. I do the Macarena. On the way to the airport, I call it the airport Macarena. You remember that Macarena dance? Yeah, it's that, except I do it to check to make sure I have everything that I'm supposed to have. How many do the Macarena? You're just checking. I got my passport, got my keys, oh yeah. And I froze. No keys. No keys. My wife is on me all the time because I grew up in the country in northern Minnesota, and we did not lock doors and we did not take keys out of the car. Why would you take keys out of the ignition? You will lose them if you take them out of the ignition. You don't have to look for keys if they're in the ignition. No one ever stole anything. No one ever broke into our house, and so you just kept them in the ignition. And my wife would say to me, "Do not do that." Now I have left the keys in the ignition, and I am afraid that she might find out. And so I make my way out of this building, and I know exactly where we came in. I know exactly where the car is supposed to be. I walked out and it was gone. My car had been stolen. Now I was in big trouble. So I picked up the phone. My first call was to the police. I said, "I was in a meeting and I am afraid I left my keys in the car, but you need to come. My car has been stolen. I want my car back. Would you please come?" And I gave them the address and said, "Will you come here?" And then I hung up the phone and I called my wife. And I didn't hang it up like that because it was a cell phone. That tells you how old I am. I hung up the phone and I called my wife. This was the most troubling call of all. And I said, sweetheart, I know you have told me that I should never leave my keys in the car, but I left my keys in the car, and I came out, and baby, the car is gone. The car had been stolen. You women have no mercy. There was a long pause. I said, are you there? She said, Ken, I dropped you off. That's a true story. I said, can you come and get me? She said, yes, I will be there in about 15 or 20 minutes. I said, no, why 15 or 20 minutes? Can you come and get me now? She said, I will be there in just a little while. I said, why just a little while? She said, I have to convince this policeman that I have not stolen your car. So is it okay if I'm a little weird? The second thing I want to tell you is I want to hear the truth. I have been lied to by politicians. My uncle was a weatherman. I spent my whole life shoveling partly cloudy off of the driveway. I want to hear the truth. I have been married for 43 years. I was speaking to a group of a couple thousand preachers, and I told them I have been married 43 years. They stood to their feet in a standing ovation. Now, moments like that are made for me. I am weird. I let them clap. They clapped. When they stopped clapping, I said to 7 different women. That makes preachers stop clapping. You have not lived till you watch a couple thousand preachers try to erase their applause. The truth of the matter is that I have been married for 43 years to the same woman. Her name is Diane. I love her with all of my heart. But we have a real marriage. People think that somehow, that because you stand on stage, or because you preach, or because you're a movie star, you got your life all together. It isn't true. Everybody faces a life that has all kinds of problems and conflicts. You wouldn't believe the people that come up to my wife, Diane, and they say to her, oh, it must be so wonderful being married to him. Laughter in your life from morning until night. She throws up on those people. Because we have a guy came up after that very same program, and he came up to me, and remember, I cannot stand to be lied to. He came up to me, and he said, I have been married 43 years. He was doing that with his tongue. He said, my wife and I have never had an argument. I wanted to say, that's because she do not want to watch you do that with your tongue. Then he said, we have never even raised our voices to one another. And I was getting mad. I'm getting lied to. Then he said, we've never even had a bad thought toward one another. And I could not hold back any longer. I said, you are married to a carrot. You are not married to a human being. Give me a break. I see a lot of young people here, a lot of young men and women. Let me tell you something. A good marriage is not the absence of conflict. A good marriage is two people who love each other and have committed themselves to each other, who have determined to live through the tough times and conflict together. That's a good marriage. And then, yeah, that's right. If you're going to clap, do it. None of this halfway, yeah, that's a good marriage. Too many people, first time they're coming to a speed bump in life, they jump out of the boat. Well, that was stupid. Boats don't have speed bumps. Speed bump. Why'd they put that there? I'm going to level with you. I'm going to tell you the truth tonight. I'm going to try and be as honest as I can about everything. And I will tell you, I love this woman, 43 years of marriage. We argue. We have conflicts. Give me this. We never had a bad thought toward one another. We argue. And it's getting worse the older we get. Because neither one of us can hear anymore. We have entire arguments with just one word. What? What? And women, look at me. I told you to look at me. If you want to say something to us, do not seclude yourself into some remote closet in the basement and start mumbling to us from there. That's the sound of men applauding. The longest, most intense argument a man and woman will ever have begins with this exchange. Where would you like to eat tonight? This conversation goes the same every time. I don't care. Young men, look at me. They care. You listening to me? They care. If you don't believe they care, just name a place. Let's go to Fred's. I would prefer that we do not go to Fred's. Why do you not want to go to Fred's? Well, you may remember last time we were there, I ordered and the waitress came, and I'm telling you, Ken, she had a tone. She had a what? A tone. There was a tone to her voice. I do not want to go to Fred's. I will not eat at Fred's. Okay, let's go to the barbecue place. No, I do not want to go to the barbecue place. Why do you not want to go to the barbecue place? Because the last time we were there, I drove past there yesterday on the way to shopping, and I saw a rodent, a dead rodent on the road. What does that have to do with Fred's or the barbecue place? It doesn't have anything to do with Fred's. What does that have to do with the barbecue place? He might have come from the barbecue. He looked a little barbecue. Well, where would you like to go? I don't care. What is your name? Josh. How old are you, Josh? 17. 17 years old. Stand up, Josh. Folks, look at Josh. Turn around, Josh. Are you married? Josh, you ever wonder what it's like to be married? Yeah, thank you. Honest. I love honest. You see, I get guys that lie to me. No. I've never thought of it, It really doesn't matter either way because every thought you've had is wrong. Stay there. Did I tell you you could sit down? Do you like to sleep, Josh? Forget that. You see, Josh, the Bible says that God made the sun to rule over the day. I'm here to tell you that God made woman to tell you what went wrong while the sun was supposed to be doing its job. She does it at night. You can sit down, son. Someday you will be married. You're a handsome young man. You will be married. Remember this. I may be gone. I may be gone already, but maybe not. If I'm not, email me and tell me, because I'm telling you now it's going to happen. You will be lying in bed. You will be almost asleep, and you will hear this. Look at me, Josh. That night is over, Josh. Every man in here will tell you that that night is over. There is nothing you can do. What's wrong? Nothing! $17. Wow. When I look down and see how young you are and the fact that you have hair, you have your whole life in front of you, I just want to slap you. Josh, my only revenge is that someday you will wake up and be 55. And you will walk into a room and make a little circle like a dog looking for a place to lay down. Because you're trying to remember why you came into the room. You hear that laughter? Old people. Am I wrong? Am I alone here? Do any of you ever leave and come back hoping that will trigger something? Let me see your hands. If I didn't have a wife, I wouldn't know where I am ever. I wouldn't have a clue. Just the other day, I called to her. Diane, honey, help me. I've been in this room for 15 minutes. I have left twice. I still do not know why I am here. They are without mercy. You're in the bathroom, idiot. Figure it out. Look at Josh going, didn't you have to go? Tell you something, son. You get my age, you don't go when you have to go. You go when you're supposed to go. When's that? Depends, son. Depends. But I'm telling you, son, sleep is over. Sleep will not happen. 43 years of marriage, just a couple of weeks ago. I'm laying in bed. I have reached that point. Do you know that point where you're just going to sleep? That marvelous, that wonderful point where you're going into that point where your body goes. Cat hits the wall. Your wife goes, what? Oh, I was right there. That beautiful spot, that wonderful spot. And I heard, are you awake? Not anymore. She said, I've been thinking. I said, I've been sleeping. Then she said the words that strike fear into the heart of men worldwide. You don't share your feelings anymore. Women, look at me. We don't have feelings. We have a remote control. Now, I do not want you to make a mistake here. I do not want you to think that I am in a bad marriage. I am in a marvelous marriage. I love this woman. We laugh together. We have great times together, but our marriage is real. And this is part of the deal. We're different. We communicate differently. I'm sick of people lying about that, and so we have to learn how to do it together. This woman has stayed with me for 43 years. There have been times of my life when I was an absolute idiot. An idiot. You're a dead man. You're a dead man. Get rid of that hideous thing. Let me tell you something. When you're weird and you want the truth and you appreciate common sense, airport is a dangerous place for you. The security line in the airport is particularly dangerous. People say to me, oh, it must be so nice to travel. Oh, yes, it's just a joy. They were going over me one day. Actually, what really got me started was I was at the airport not long ago, and there was this little lady. She's 90, at least 90. She is in a wheelchair. She has been screened once. But they have chosen her for secondary screening. At this airport, it's a random thing, because evidently there's something very suspicious about her wheelchair. This drives me nuts, but I'm not saying anything. I do not like jail. So I am quiet. I've been in trouble before. They were going over me once with the security thing, you know, that little spanking thing that looks just like what your mom and dad used to whoop you, but it's got little lights and music. Going over me, and when it got right here, it went off with the national security alert. Beep! The man said, pull up your sleeve. Now, he was mean to me. See, here's one thing I just say, just be nice to me. And by the way, I've met Hundreds of these men and women who are very nice, who are very kind. But this one had a patch on that shoulder and a chip on that one. Pull up your sleeve, he said. I pulled up my sleeve like that. And I am telling you, the man said, "What is that?" I said, "In Tennessee, we call that a watch." Now, I should have stopped there, but my lips were already moving. I said, "This one's got a lifetime guarantee. When it quits, a little tank comes out and shoots you right between the eyes." That is the wrong answer. I now know what a full body search is. There is not a man or woman sitting in this room who wants to have a full body search. No one in this room wants to have a full body search. I can remember back as far as when that thing first started. I remember once I got in such big trouble because I had a pair of fingernail clippers in my luggage. That man was a mean man too. "Put your luggage there," he said. "You stand over there." Went over there and I stood over there. He started digging through my luggage. I did not say anything, but I was laughing because I had been gone 47 days. That was bad luggage. I had underwear in there I was afraid of. And he's laying them on the table. I tapped him on the shoulder. I said, "You want to see a security risk? There's a security risk. I'm so scared of those, I locked my suitcase at night." He's digging around. And then he found the fingernail clippers. I never saw a man get so excited in my entire life. Hey! What are these? Tell me, what are these? I said, "In Tennessee, we call us fingernail clippers." He said, "What are you planning to do with them?" He asked. I said, "Well, I thought maybe after the airplane took off, I could make my way through the fuselage with them." That's the wrong answer. I saw the look on his face. I just found a little room and I got naked by myself. I knew they would find somebody sooner or later and send them in to check me out. So here's this little 90-year-old lady. And I am standing with my hands over my mouth. I dare not say anything. They have brought two people from another place over to help her stand up. Does this make sense to you? This woman could have had a necklace made out of box cutters and she couldn't have hurt a soul. And she is trembling and you can hear people in the line saying, "Oh, the poor dear." And I am standing with both hands over my mouth praying, "Dear God, please do not let me go to jail." And then the little lady, bless her heart, she's shaking. She goes, "I tell you something, if I miss my flight, I'm gonna kill some people." She missed her flight. So I can't keep my mouth shut, and I don't intend to. I am so tired of people walking around claiming to be children of God with faces that look like they swallowed a profusely sweating toad. Have you ever run into these people? I've been a Christian for 27 years. And it's been great. I want to say, well, send some missionaries to your face. Your face has not yet received the good news. We ought to be more like dogs. A dog is a man's what? Best friend. It comes out of your mouth automatically. A dog is a man's best friend. A dog is a child's best friend. Why? Because they're filled with joy. Dogs are filled with joy. You can be gone 3 minutes, 3 hours, 3 days, doesn't matter. You come back. That dog is right at the door. He can smell you. He's right at the crack where he can sniff, and that is my master. Whoa! He stinks. I love my master. Whoa, whoa. And then you open the door and he goes, hi, ho, whoa, hello. Come and see what I have done. Who has a dog? What do you have, son?
English Shepherd.
An English Shepherd. English Shepherd. Wow. Oh, clap. I have an English Shepherd. Who has a dog? Who has it like a dog? What do you have? Toy poodle. Toy is a Greek word that means fake. Poodle is a Greek word for Q-tip. So you have a fake Q-tip. 4 of them. Don't brag about that. Who has a dog like a mean, nasty? What do you have? What do you have?
2 Chihuahuas.
Oh, Chihuahua. Chihuahua. Who said Doberman? That's a dog. Chihuahua is not a dog. You can't. How can you even say Chihuahua? What kind of dog? Chihuahua. The word doesn't even end. Here's my imitation of a Chihuahua. The guy that works for me has a Chihuahua. I've seen him. This is my imitation of a Chihuahua. And a leaf falls somewhere in the United States. They never move forward. Who has a Doberman? Where are you? Oh, Doberman. That's a dog. You can't put up a sign in your yard. This property protected by Chihuahua. Yeah, and no, don't even think about 4 French poodles. We have 4. Doberman. You put up a sign that says, beware, Doberman. Doberman just looks at you. You're out of there. Did you know that a Chihuahua can kill a Doberman? Get caught in his throat. That's why you see a lot of Dobermans walking around going, Chihuahua. I got him at Taco Bell. I want to live. Anybody else out there like that? I don't get me wrong. I just don't want to make a living. I don't want to stay alive. I want to live. It's funny that at this stage in my life, I'm going, I want to live, because you can start now. I heard a story. A lady looked out the window of her house one day and she was horrified. Their German Shepherd dog was shaking the life out of the neighbor's rabbit next to the fence. She grabbed a broom and went outside and she beat on the dog, which finally dropped the rabbit. And the rabbit was covered with dog spit and extremely dead. She picked the rabbit up on the end of the broom and brought it into the house, and she dumped it in the bathtub and turned on the shower and rinsed it all off, and then she tipped it over and rinsed it off on the other side. She went and got her hairdryer and blew the rabbit dry. And then she found an old brush and she combed the rabbit out till he looked pretty good. And when the neighbor wasn't looking, she climbed over the fence and propped a rabbit up in his cage so that they would never be blamed for this. About an hour later, she heard terrifying screams coming from the neighbor's yard. She ran outside, pretending like she didn't know what happened. What happened? She said, what happened? The neighbor came running to the fence. All of the blood had drained from her face. She said, our rabbit, he died. And we buried him and he's back. As I have determined to share the message of what has happened in my life, living life fully alive, I have run into a lot of people who have had the courage to share with me that they feel like their lives are sort of like a fluffed up dead rabbit. They feel sort of like zombies, like they are surviving, but not thriving. But I have run into nobody who doesn't want to live fully alive, who doesn't want to feel like I felt at the bottom of that hill with my wrist almost broken and a bloody nose and the snow stinging my face, like I felt when I jumped out of an airplane with my 18-year-old daughter on her birthday. I let her go first to see if it worked. Like I felt when I jumped off of an 80-foot cliff in Canada, the painted rocks in the boundary waters that separate Canada and Minnesota, and went into the water and felt every fiber of my life tingling. You see, that's what we want, and sometimes people chase that. They dive off buildings. They do things that bring them this close to death because of the rush. But the truth of the matter is that I believe that our Creator created us to be fully alive. I believe that when St. Irenaeus said the glory of God is man fully alive, he meant it. Henry David Thoreau said that most men live lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with their song still in them. That breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because I've been there. I've been on that path. Ben Franklin said that many men die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 75. I read another quote the other day. It said, some people are only alive because it's illegal to shoot them. That has nothing to do with this, but it appealed to me. Evidently, I'm not the only one who wants to live fully alive. Trace Adkins said in one of his songs, but I want to feel something that's a real something that moves me, that proves to me that I'm alive. One of my favorite bands, Switchfoot, said, I want to wake up kicking and screaming. I want a heart that I know is beating. It's beating. I'm bleeding. It's a sign that we're alive. And life isn't without pain. Living fully alive isn't without pain. I told you about my wrist and my bloody nose. I could tell you about coming down a hill on a bicycle doing 51 miles an hour. I put it on YouTube. It is the most exciting thing. Scares you to death. There are curves. There are bugs. At 51 miles an hour on a bicycle, a bug is a dangerous thing. My wife says, honey, you are one acorn away from death. Don't do that. So I'm coming down 50 miles an hour and my eyes are bugging out, looking for acorns. I'm looking for acorns. You can't see them very good because you're doing 51 miles an hour. And I'm looking so hard for acorns, I didn't see the stupid dog. Dog came out from a driveway, barking and snarling at my heels, scared the daylights out of me, and I went like that, and the wheel of the bicycle started to oscillate, and at 51, the oscillation almost vibrates the bike right from underneath your body. The only way I could get it to stop was to step on the brakes, but I got the dog coming at me. And I watched the dog, and I was afraid he was going to get me, and that was when I hit the acorn. But while I was sliding, I knew I'm alive. There was pain, but I knew I'm alive. And I determined somewhere as all of this was happening to me that this is something that I need not just for my physical life. This is something that I need for my spiritual life. This is something that I need for my emotional life and my social life. I have to say just for a second to my friends who are 65, you're not dead yet. But I was acting like it. I was acting like it. God isn't through with you yet. This life is not a waiting room for death. I have another author, one of my favorites, who quoted something on this. His name is Paul. He was writing to some of his friends in a letter called Philippians, and he said this. This has changed my life. It has changed the focus of my life. I look at it every single day. Paul said, I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection. He was not talking about, well, when I die, I would like to be raised from the dead. He was talking partly about that, but he was specifically talking about knowing the power of God's resurrection in his life now. I told you, I'm a believer. I am a follower of Christ. I don't say that to offend you. I say that to tell you this, that if Christ is not raised from the dead, then I and every person who claims to be a follower of him is a fool. Paul told us that too. But if he is raised from the dead, then there is the possibility that we can know the power of that kind of resurrection, the power that overcomes death, and we might be able to taste a little of it now. I want that. Don't know about you. You say, I came to a comedy concert. I didn't come to hear a preacher. I'm not preaching. I'm telling you the story of my life. And along the way, I've gotten little glimpses. When I was a teenager, in that insolent stage of life, it wasn't a particularly happy time for me. I weighed 115 pounds, 110. Went between 110 and 115, depended on whether I was lifting or not. I got beat up a lot in school. Let me tell you something. Bullying didn't start in the year of 2011. I was small. I couldn't play athletics. I had curvature of the bone in both of my arms. I couldn't straighten my arms. I couldn't catch a ball. I had a visiting physical education teacher give us an eye-hand coordination contest. Folks, I have the eye-hand coordination of a carp. Do you have carp here? Nasty. What a nasty fish. It's a nasty word, carp. Sounds like gout. It's just a nasty word. Carp, if you don't know what it is a fish with lips. Not fish lips, human, nasty lips. If you fall into a pool of carp, you will be hickied to death. Look at this boy going, what's wrong with that? He said, take the showers. Go take a shower. You'll never amount to anything. Because I couldn't catch a football. He said it in front of all of my classmates. Now, he wasn't trying to be mean. As I look back on it, for a lot of years, I thought he was just a mean person. I think he was trying to make a man out of me. But I wasn't created to catch a football. I was created to give people heart attacks. We had a guy have a heart attack in one of these meetings. Just flipped right out onto the... That's what I was made for. I wrote him a letter. We had to refund tickets. You know, you can't. They had a team in there doing the thing on him. They take him out the back. You can't keep going. You can't keep going. Okay, 2 alligators walked into a bar. We refunded tickets. I wrote the guy a letter. I said, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. He said, don't be sorry. I've had 4 heart attacks. He said, I want to thank you for the best heart attack I ever had. I wasn't designed to be an athlete. I was designed to be weird. I was born to be here tonight. To tell you stuff that makes you laugh. To tell you stuff that might make you live. That's why I was born. But when I was little, this gift, this whatever it is that I have, I only used it to keep from getting beat up. If people were laughing, they would not hit me. It became a defense mechanism. And then it became a way for people to pay attention to me. I only wanted one thing. I wanted to be loved, that's all. I wanted somebody to say, you have value, even though you can't catch a football. You have worth. We were in English class. I had a teacher, Francis W. Peterson. I loved English. I loved literature. I never dared admit that out loud because it meant another beating. I was then a sissy. And we were studying Shakespeare one day. Macbeth. I believe it was Macbeth. And there's a line there where there's a spot of blood on the clothing. And the line goes, Shakespeare wrote it, out, damn spot. And I raised my hand, trying to be funny, and I suggested 3 or 4 other really nasty adjectives that could have replaced that one. And I was trying to be funny, and all my friends laughed, but the teacher was not happy. This is a woman who had never been anything but kind to me. She made me stay after class. She pulled a desk up right next to her desk and said, "You sit here." When you stayed after class where I went to school, it meant you missed your bus. When you missed your bus, they called your parents, and then your parents came to get you. When I graduated from school, your parents did not bring a lawyer with them. They brought a 2x4. I knew I was in desperate trouble, and I knew I was going to be expelled. And she corrected papers, waiting for my parents to arrive. And then I can still see her long, slender fingers as they capped the pen. And she laid the pen down and she said, "Kenneth Alpheus Davis, look at me." And I looked at her. And she said to me, "God has given you a gift." I had thrown nothing but dirt at her, and she had pushed it all aside to find a nugget of gold and hold it in front of me. She said, "Now you've been using this gift to destroy my class." "That's going to change," she said. "You're going out for speech." I stood right up out of my chair, smart-mouthed kid. I said, "I'm not going out for speech. All my friends are walking around school wearing leather jackets that have macho symbols, hockey sticks, footballs. I will not walk around this school with a set of lips hanging off of my jacket." Speech. Oh, she said, "You will go out for speech because the alternative is unthinkable." She made me go out for speech. She insisted I go out for humorous interpretation. And I won every contest I ever entered except for one. And I felt something in my temple. It was a pulse. It was a pulse. It was my heart beating, telling me God did not make a mistake when he made you. Start to live. Start to live. I had a chance to perform in an audience that she was in years and years later and give her a dozen roses and thank her for the influence that she had in my life. Her words, "God has given you a gift," words that might get someone fired today, wiped away the horrible words, "You will never amount to anything." They moved me from fear to confidence, that it was okay to be who I was. I realized that even when you're doing a project like this, there's a tremendous fear of failure. How many of you would be honest with me and say, "Man, sometimes I'm just so scared I'm going to fail"? Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands. Guess what? You are going to fail. Do it quickly. If you're living, you're going to fail. Diane says to me over and over and over again when I come home with these videos of me going downhill on bicycles, "You're going to fall." I said, "I may, but I want to live. I want to live. I'm not going to be stupid. I'm not going to jump out in front of a big truck and go, 'Boy, this is exciting.' But I want to live." And the way you live is you move past fear to confidence. Don't be ashamed that there's fear. People who have courage are people who move through fear to courage. People who have faith are people who move through doubt to faith. My teacher changed my life. There was another sign of life that came to me. I had let my body go. I had let my morals go. I had let my spiritual life fade into some kind of zombie-like existence. I was coasting. I was looking at the fact that the entire world belongs to, tell me your name again? Josh. The world belongs to Josh. It doesn't belong to me. I'm looking at less years left than I have behind me, and I'd started to coast. I was on a beach one day with my grandchild, my granddaughter, and someone took a picture that shocked me into reality physically. This is the picture. That's me about 5 years ago, holding the hand of a little girl who, if she had been 100 yards from shore and called for my help, I couldn't have helped her. I could not have helped her. There was nothing I could do. I had let every part of my life slip. And if you face what I was facing now, this is not a condemnation of you. I'm telling you that physically, what we allow to happen to us physically affects so many other areas of life. And this became an example of what I could be. When I saw that picture, I was so embarrassed. I remember people on the beach yelling, "Move! We want to see the ocean." Environmentalists pouring water on me, trying to push me back into the water. I decided I didn't want to live like that anymore. And I found a sign of life in a weird place called discipline. We think of discipline as a bad thing, like someone beating the daylights out of you. That's not discipline. I'm talking about the kind of discipline where you decide that you will do the work to live. The discipline that a pianist takes when they do hours of training so that they can play beautifully. And when they want to play with their heart, it's available because they know the basics. The discipline that it takes to get out of this kind of a dead place that I was, physically. I started setting goals for myself that I had to match. I signed up for a triathlon. 64 at the time. I signed up for a triathlon. Now, not the Ironman, not the stuff people do where they pass away. I did more like a styrofoam person. You know, where you run from the bed to the bathroom and fill up the bathtub and then pull the plug and fight against the current. Go into the basement, pump up a bicycle tire, and then go back to bed. I signed up for a sprint triathlon, and I began training for that triathlon. Began to run and to walk. It was painful. First time I ran, I made it maybe a mile. I don't remember how far I made it, maybe a couple of blocks. Took my cell phone out, called my wife and said, "Come and get me, can't go any further than this." But the next morning I got up again and I did it again, and the next morning again, and pretty soon I was running 2 miles and then 8 miles and then 10 miles. And I discovered it only happened from discipline. But guess what? The discipline, I'm going to tell you, it's not hard after a while to run 10 miles. It's not hard to run 8 miles for me. Do you know what's hard for me? To get out of bed. This is the truth. If I make it to the door and close the door, whatever I have planned to do is over in just a little while. I rode bike because that's part of a triathlon. I live in Tennessee. There's nothing but hills in Tennessee. Nothing but hills. Couldn't make it up the hills. Hello, come and get me. And then I decided I'm not calling anyone anymore. If I have to make it up the hill, I will walk up the hill. And I walked up the hill. And then finally I was riding up the hill. And then pretty soon I was riding up the hill and coming down at 51 miles an hour and then riding back up again so that I could do it again. There's a saying, I see this ad on TV, a body in motion tends to stay in motion. I want to tell you the truth. A body at rest tends to rest in peace. In our culture, at the age 45, the quality of life begins to decay. At 45. And by the time we reach age 60, 65, most people spend from those last 5 or 10 years up to about 70 totally incapacitated, living a minimum quality of life. And I found out in my research that if you are willing to discipline yourself to 1 hour, 45 minutes to an hour, doesn't matter, where your heart rate is up in that aerobic range, and then 2 or 3 times you do something we never do because it's hard, we push ourselves to where it's almost to the limit, just for a little while, just to get our heart pumping, just to remind our body, we're still alive, we're not laying down. If you do that, from age 45 to about age 65, you can increase the quality of your life. It doesn't go up like it does for Josh. Not some steep, wonderful thing where muscles are building all over. If you could see, well, you saw the picture of me. I don't look like that anymore. You say, well, let's see what it looks like. No, you don't want to see what it looks like. Think Venetian blind. But it isn't about, do I look cool? It's about that I'm alive and I'm living. And if something happens, I can do something about it. And I can get up in the morning and run for 10 miles and come back, and I feel like I can conquer anything. And I am able to do what God asked me to do. And it's affected my spiritual life, and it's affected my emotional life. Hasn't affected my speech. I have a friend who says, it's worth doing something poorly the first time, just to get started. And when you fail at it, or when it doesn't work right, you'll learn how to make it better the next time. And it's one of the reasons I came. I saw another sign of life in my family. I don't think there's anything that makes life worth living more than love. Nothing. I got a glimpse of it when I had children. I didn't want children. It isn't that I hated children. It's just we had met one. We went to a house one time. They had a small child, 2.5-year-old child. They sat me next to this child to eat dinner. That's one of the grossest experiences in all of life. Kid had food all over himself. Food everywhere. He had a slobber thing hanging down, swinging. Now you slobber, I saw you do it a minute ago, but it drips off. You can get rid of it. This thing is just swinging around. Light is hitting it, throwing rainbows around the room. I wanted to say to the mother, get some scissors and cut that off of there. Kid gets food up to his elbows, and then he gets friendly with me. I whispered to him, you touch me, I'll drop kick you. On the way home, I said to Diane, my wife, I don't ever want to have children. I looked over, she was rubbing food stains from her beautiful dress. She said, neither do I. I pulled the car over. I took her hands in mine, said what I thought was the most romantic thing I had ever said. I said, my love is reserved for you. I will not share it with any child. Then we went home and celebrated. And that was the wrong answer. When our first child, Tracy, was born, she had a difficult birth and she was not breathing. It was quiet. She was the wrong color. It seemed almost crazy peaceful. And then the doctors rushed into the room and they rubbed her with towels and they put oxygen on her little mouth and nose. And her arms began to fly and color came into her face, beet red. And she began to scream bloody murder. And we celebrated because she was alive. And the doctor brought her over because I was sitting on the ground. He said, you have a little girl. Would you like to hold her? I said, no. He said, why do you not want to hold her? I said, she will break. He said, stand up, you idiot. Diane had given him my name. I stood up, and before I could protest, he put her in my arms. A little hand shot out, her hand no bigger than my thumbnail. And she wrapped 4 tiny little fingers around this finger. And she wrapped her soul around my heart. And I would have died for her. And I got a little glimpse of what God's love is like. And when you get a little glimpse of what God's love is like, you get a little glimpse of life. The Apostle Paul said, I want to know Christ and the
power of his resurrection. I blinked. Big mistake. When I opened my eyes, she wasn't hanging onto my finger anymore. She was hanging onto my arm. She was all dressed in white from the top of her toes, from all the way. Josh, if you're all dressed in white from the top of your toes, you're naked. It was her wedding day. All of our friends were in the church. The organ was playing. There was a little pervert waiting for her in the front of the room. Look at these women going, oh, that's a bad word, gee. But all the men are going, no, you got the word. She squeezed my arm, and she said the words I was born to hear. I love you, Daddy. Now, she does love me. That isn't why she said it. I'll tell you why she said it. She made a bet with her sister that they could make me cry during this wedding. Don't laugh. That is sick. All the way down the aisle, squeezing my arm, going, I love you, Daddy. I love you, Daddy. I love you. She doesn't even care about the pervert. She wants $100. I bit my lip. I was not going to give her $100, not that way. I had a lot of money for her, but she's not going to squeeze it out of me with that nasty thing. Made it all the way to the front, but the preacher, well, she had me so messed up. The preacher was way formal. I'm not formal. This dude was over the top. He goes, Who giveth this woman to this man? And I was so freaked out, I went, my mother and I. And that's the wrong answer. Preacher said, sit down. I sat down and made a bad mistake. I blinked again. I blinked again. That was not a blink. That was a snap. I did that because you cannot hear this. My favorite people are the people who are real quiet and right now leaning over to their friends going, that was stupid. When I opened my eyes this time, she was lying in a hospital bed in Denver, Colorado, giving birth to my first grandchild. And it went just like that. When my daughter was laying there and had that baby, I want to tell you, when that baby cried, I collapsed in the hallway of the hospital. I learned something that day. You collapse in the hallway of a major hospital, people come from everywhere. I learned something else that day. Never let them do that thing to you. Hurts like fire. That hurts like fire, and you can't get them to stop doing it. They love doing it. Ow! Ow! What is wrong with you? Are you out of your mind? My daughter is giving me... Ow! Josh, let me tell you something. If you're ever laying down, you hear someone yell, clear, stand up.
They will fry your little chesty things right off of you unless you stand up. They brought that child out, took her to the aquarium. I fell in love. I fell in love all over again. And I now have 6 of those little bread snappers, 6 grandchildren that have taught me so much about the love of God, that have taught me so much about life, who look to me to live life with them, who look to me to shut off the television and play stuff. These are my 3 fairy granddaughters. Are they not beautiful? That's Kylie and JJ and Lexi, my fairy granddaughters. Do you remember I told you I won't let anybody lie to me? Now I'm going to tell you the truth. Look at me, look at me. They are fairies. I would not lie to you. They have wings. When I come into the house, they hear my voice and they come running from all over the house and their feet leave the ground because they are flying. I would not lie to you. And they wrap skinny little arms around my neck and they whisper in my ear the words I was born to hear. I love you, Grandpa. And then they always say something like, ew. What is that in your ear? And I tell them, that is a nativity scene. The ACLU's trying to get me to take that down. I have 2 demon-possessed grandsons. They are not demon-possessed, they are boys. Boys is a Greek word that means possessed of demons. Little girls come into the house. Oh, look at this. This is in the wrong place. I am going to put this here, Grandpa. I put that there because it's so beautiful there. And then we turn that, and it looks like that. What do you think of that, Grandpa? What do you think? These boys come into the house and go, they clean up real nice. It is not politically correct to talk about faith. Let me tell you something, politically correct or not. One of the greatest life experiences for me was to baptize those 2 boys 2 months ago because of their sound and profound profession of faith in God. The oldest boy, his name is Preston. Preston said to his dad, Dad, where's my other grandpa? You cannot blame this child. You can't blame him. If you're a boy that age and I'm your only grandpa, you want to know if there's options. His dad said he's in heaven, son. I said, well, Grandpa, how do you get to heaven? 45 minutes of discussion. And then he just bowed his head and said one of the most profound prayers. I would give my right arm to have that recorded. And then what is he? What kind of animal is he? He's a boy. Thank you. He is a boy. So right after his prayer, he found his brother, began to beat on his brother so he could come to know Jesus too. His brother resisted. Couple months later, his brother's in the doctor's office. Doctor's got the stethoscope on this little boy's tiny chest and says to him, tell me, son, what's new with you? And little Bailey says, I have become a Christian. And the doctor says, well, we don't get a lot of that in here. Bailey said, well, let me explain it to you then. When their mom called me and said, will you baptize them? I lost it. I lose it a lot, especially when I'm experiencing life. They knew what they were doing. They made a sound proclamation of faith. And I'll tell you, a high point in my life was taking that youngest boy and saying, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in the likeness of his death, and raised again in newness of life. What I'm telling you about. I said it to my grandson. Raised again in newness of life. And his little face is beaming. I said, go stand over there, because it was a big, big baptismal. A couple thousand people watching us. And he went and stood over there. Then his brother came. And he proclaimed his faith, and I baptized him in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And I dunked him down, and I looked underneath him, and I saw his younger brother underneath. And when he popped to the surface, he said, I just wanted to see it close up. I have another grandson. He likes Dunkin' Donuts. He looks like he's a little fond of Jack Daniels, too. I want to live for this boy. I want to live to tell him about the power of living and knowing Christ and living with the power of his resurrection in your life. You don't dare blink. When you blink, he looks like this today. That's a little prison we built for him. I tell you all of this to tell you the story that happened to us, not this August, but the August before. This little girl's name is Jaden. Jaden is my princess. We have a connection. It doesn't matter whether we are plowing or whether we are cutting down trees or hiking through mud. Jaden's always wearing her sparkly princess shoes and her little princess clothes. Everything has to match. She and her 3 sisters and I and my wife went into the mountains, 10,500 feet, camping with these beautiful children. Oh, they had a marvelous time. They loved the campfire. Stick little sticks into the campfire until they start on fire, and then wave them in the air until it's just a red glowing thing, and then poke your sister with that, and then stick it back in and wave it in the air until finally they couldn't keep their eyes open anymore. And so we tucked them into their sleeping bags, popped up in the morning when the sun rose. Can we have a fire again? All the wood is gone, and so we went hunting for wood. Little Jaden, I did not want little Jaden to get hurt. And so as we crossed this little logging road that was near our campsite, I said to Jaden, see this stick? It was about the size of this. I said, take this to your grandmother. And she took it. She was so proud. I can still see her dragging it across the road. And when she was almost to the campsite, we turned to get the bigger stuff that would hurt her. That was the last we saw of Jaden. Evidently what happened was Jaden got almost to her grandmother, and then she decided, I would rather be with my grandfather. And so she turned around and started to find us and wandered into the wilderness at 10,500 feet. She was gone for 3.5 hours. We were out of our minds. Let me tell you what happens. In the first hour or so, you think, maybe on the next breath of wind I will hear her voice. As you run as fast and far as you can run and call her name in every direction you can possibly go. You think, maybe I'll see her now standing by this tree. Maybe she'll be where this road runs out. Maybe I hope she's not down by the river. But after about 2.5 hours, you begin to brace yourself for the very worst. They had a marvelous rescue team that came because we found a forest ranger, and he called them, and they were there just so quickly. They lined up a mile above the campsite to search downhill, because children do not go uphill. They go the easy route, downhill. In the meantime, I had searched the river and thanking God that she was not there. And then I had to search the swamp. There's just this small swampy area filled with potholes and brush that fights your every move. And I prayed, don't let her be in here. Don't let her be in here. And I was making my way through that swampy area when I stumbled and I fell in a small pool of water, maybe 1.5 feet deep. I had run for 3 hours. I had called for 3 hours. I could not get up. I could not move. My strength was gone. My voice was gone. And on my hands and knees, I prayed to God that day, dear God, please, God, take my career. You can have it. Take my savings. Take it. God, take my house. Take my plane. All of the things that I so cherish. God, take them. And finally, the final thing I said from my knees to myself, because my voice would not carry anything, was, God, take my life. Take me. But please bring this baby back. I didn't know it, but at about that moment, a teacher, they were going up into the mountains to hike, and they came across a beautiful little blonde girl sitting on a rock where the roads run out and only wilderness begins. And the teacher said, this can't be right. That's why she's a teacher. And she walked up to my little Jaden and she said, honey, are you okay? And she said, Jaden said to her, I cannot talk to you. And the teacher said, I am not a stranger. I am a teacher. And she said, Jaden said, well, okay then. My grandpa is lost. I knew nothing about this. I finally was able to regain my feet and stumble back into camp. And as I stumbled into our little campsite, the radio on the forestry guy's belt came to life with these words, we have found Jaden. She is alive and well. And I collapsed again. What a great ending. What a wonderful thing. I remember seeing her little blonde hair flying in the wind as they brought her back on an ATV. I remember the reunion, and I particularly remember because this wonderful search and rescue team sent me a picture of it. This is the picture of our reunion. By the way, JJ had walked 2.5 miles straight up the mountain. She was 1.5 miles beyond where they were lined up to search downhill for her. I got weird kids. She came back and I grabbed her hands. This was a moment of change in my life. I said to her, you are a bad, bad girl. Do you believe that? No. Does anybody in here believe that? How about this? How many times have I told you? Not even close. How about this? Wait until your evil grandmother gets her hands on you. No, I will tell you what I said to her. I know what I said to her. I could only whisper it. But I said, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. It's the only words that would come out of my mouth. And suddenly it hit me. That's how God feels about me. That's how he feels when a child finally comes to him after being lost. That's how he feels when someone is living the dead life of a zombie when they should know better and suddenly decide to live fully alive. think of God as this person who doesn't enjoy laughter and fun, and we walk around sometimes acting like who would want to be a follower of Jesus? And instead, he loves us. He loves us. And that changed me, except for one thing. I had another question that I struggled with for almost a year. This was the question: what if? Would I be here tonight if it had been a different outcome? After the first show, I had a man show me a picture of a son that he lost. Would I be here? And I ran that through my head, and it tumbled around in my brain, and I thought about it, and I asked God about it. And last August, I went up to that area to hunt again, and I came across this site. I came around a corner, and I lost it again. This is the ribbon they tied on the tree, where they asked me to show where we had last seen Jaden. And it was like all of what I had thought about came to a conclusion. If Jaden had not come back to me, the only hope that I would have to go on, my only faith, the only thing that would make me want to continue is a faith that knows that God loved this little girl more than I do. And that she was with him. My hope for my grandchildren is that someday when the roles have been reversed and I'm the one who has wings, and I hear their little voices at the gate, that it is I who will fly to them and gather them to myself and say, "Welcome home, little ones." That's our hope. It was the hope of the man who showed me his son. It was the hope of people I've met through the years as I've talked about this issue, who have had tragedy like you cannot believe, who said to me, if we'd have thought beforehand about this, we couldn't handle it. But when the time came, God gave us hope to live fully alive. Most of those people today have dedicated their lives to helping other people going through those situations. I am not the same man that I was 2 years ago. Half of me's gone. I am not the same man that I was a few years ago. I'm not coasting. I'm not retired. I'm retreaded. And watch out, because I got whatever time I got left to live fully alive and glorify the God that created me. I'm going to tell you one more story. When I was training for the triathlon. By the way, did I tell you? I took second. In my age group. There were 2 guys in my age group. I will tell you the truth. I beat over half of all the people of all ages who ran in that triathlon. But that isn't the important thing. This race doesn't have a winner's circle. It only has a finish line. And it isn't about how you look. It's about being everything you can possibly be. And so I'm training. And remember, I couldn't ride a bike at first. And there was this one hill, 2.5 miles long, just before I get to my house. And for the longest time, I couldn't make it up it. I had to walk. And then I could ride it. And then I started riding it pretty fast. But it was still a tough hill. And just before the triathlon was supposed to happen, I'm riding up that hill, and I have timed myself, and I am doing fine. fine. I'm almost exhausted, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to make it to the top of the hill. And from behind me, I hear this sound. Sounds like one of those life support machines. Scared me to death. I looked behind me. There was a fossil of a man. This old dude. And he was gaining on me. I cannot let this happen. I am so competitive. This is what I love about God. He gave me a competitive spirit, fiercely competitive spirit, and nothing to back it up. Is that hilarious? So this guy's gaining on me, and I stand up in the pedals, and I start pumping on my bike as fast as I can possibly ride. And he comes up beside me, and he smiles. And it is all that I can do to keep from punching him out. And then he goes past me. And I am so tired, I think I'm going to throw up. I think I will throw up. And he disappears over the hill. And then I see him again, and I thought, well, maybe I'm gaining on him. But then I see he is slowing down. And he slows down until he is right beside me. And he's pumping beside me, and he is smiling. And he looks at me, and he says, "Don't stop doing this." He said, "I do this to live." And all I can think is, the dude is carrying on a conversation. I'm throwing up. He's smiling. He said, "I don't do this to stay alive. I do this to live." He's got this huge smile. He says, "Today is the anniversary of my stroke." He said, "I have all my speech back. I lost all my speech." He said, "I don't have full use of my left arm or left leg yet, but I'm alive." And then he took off. I am being defeated by a disabled dinosaur. I stood up again to try and catch him. As I stood up to try and catch him, he was at the top of the hill, and he looked over his shoulder, and he said to me, "Live!" He disappeared over the hill. I will never forget this man. I sometimes wonder if maybe he wasn't an angel. But then I remember how he was slobbering. Couldn't be. I want to tell you something. I cannot tell you what a pleasure and privilege it is to come here and watch you laugh. To have a great time with you, Josh. There's some stuff at the back. It's all free for you, okay? You take whatever you want. I love your laughter. Is your mom and dad here? Oh, that's great. You guys stop back there and pay for it. I'm serious, man. You stop back there. I am grateful that I get a chance to share the little signs of life that I have found in my story since the time I was just innocent to the time I became confused. But I am most grateful that you allowed me to share with you how I have learned to live fully alive. I want that for you. I want it for you. Before you leave, or maybe right after you leave, or maybe a week from now, or maybe a month from now, or maybe a couple years from now, when you're facing some difficult times and you wonder if life is really worth living, you're going to hear this. it will be me. And I will be saying to you what I am saying now. Live! For God's sake, live. God bless you. Good night.
Sometimes I tickle myself.